your weekly horoscope with Jerry and Matt.
Okay, good evening. Welcome, horror fans. Welcome to another episode of the Weekly Horoscope. I am your host, Jerry, with my partner, Matt. And this week for you, we have an interesting topic. We're going to talk about vacations from hell. Matt, what's your thoughts on this one?
This is one of my favorite topics to talk about because vacations, I mean, it's funny because every time I go on vacation, like it's one of those things where it's meant to be like a great time, and you're escaping reality, and you're going to have a good time with friends or family or loved ones. And the idea that it just turns into an absolute nightmare, I think, is a perfect premise for a horror movie.
Yeah, a lot of good choices here, and the people in the films we saw definitely escaped reality. Maybe not to their liking, but we're going to start with The Hills Have Eyes from 1977, directed by Wes Craven. And we start at the trope that we've been talking about, the rundown gas station.
The gas station, yeah.
Yeah, and there's an old man. He's packing up, and he encounters a rough-looking girl named Ruby, who tells him that they will be mad at him if they find out he's leaving. And that's when our main family with a camper pull in. And of course, the gas station has no gas. They never do. But the old man running the gas station tells the family to not go the way they're going. They want to go through the shortcut, look at some property in the desert. And he's like, don't go that way. Of course, nobody ever listens in these movies.
Yeah, right.
We see a glimpse.
He has almost like no real reason. Like, just don't do it. And it's like the family's like, all right, you crazy old guy. Yeah. He could have explained the story right there.
At least parts of it, sure. And we see a character running through the junk and behind this man's gas station, and then we see his truck explode that he was packing to leave in, kind of further cementing him as a kind of a wacko not to listen to the family. And the father of the family is a retired police officer, and he's got a little bit of arrogance to him. He's going to do what he wants to do anyways. So they take off, and they're headed down this dirt road in the middle of nothing. There's talk about the nuclear testing site, and a couple of Air Force jets fly right over the top of them. And the father's driving way too fast. He loses control, and he goes off into some giant shrub. He's off the road, and he snapped the axle to his pickup truck pulling the camper, or actually it's kind of a big station wagon. So now they're stuck, and there's the premise for our movie. They decide that the father and the oldest sister's husband, they're going to look for help, and they're going to walk in opposite directions. Again, we're in the middle of the desert. There is nothing around. They do some nice panoramic shots showing you the hills and the desert, and it's a great picture of nothingness.
Yeah. Just an empty void.
Yeah, for sure. Who's left at the campsite is the mother, the two sisters, one brother, a baby, and two dogs, Beauty and Beast. And Beauty starts her action by running away and taking off into the hills. And Bobby, the brother, chases after him. And we see the dog run up into the bluffs of the hills, and then we hear him yelp. And when Bobby comes upon him, it's mutilated dog carcass, just matted blood and fur, and very upsetting to Bobby. While he's standing there, kind of seeing the situation, somebody jumps out and scares him. We don't really see what. It's just
it's this first act where they're just setting up that unknown, which is interesting because in a lot of movies, it's very interesting how they decided to pick like a desert theme like this, because In a lot of movies, it'll be like a forest or some kind of dense jungle or some kind of cave system or somewhere that creates claustrophobia. But this is just wide open, middle of the day desert. And it's
Yeah.
just like, well, what's out there? Because we can see everything, right? Well, that's
Yeah.
what they want you to think. But it's just, yeah, it's very interesting choice of setting.
If not
Unique.
for the hills, you would have literally nowhere to hide. So the hills in the
Right.
title become the only, the source of all the mystery.
Yeah.
Bobby runs back to the camp where it's now dark. And of course, he had left all the women alone. Meanwhile, the father makes it all the way back to the gas station with the crazy old man. And he goes in and finds the phone is out. And the old man is in the back trying to hang himself. He's actually hanging by his neck when he walks in.
Yeah.
And
I thought that was because he thought that he thought one of them was coming for him, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's what he explains, and he didn't want to suffer that. So he pulls the old man down, and the old man proceeds to tell him the story of his monstrous child that he banished off to the desert to die. And not only did it not die, it somehow managed to reproduce. And now there's this clan of monstrous backwoods inbred cannibals in the
incestuous cannibals that have just been living there. And apparently when Wes Craven did this movie, he based it off the Shawnee Bean legend from the 16th century in Scotland, where there was there was Shawnee Bean had gone out into left society with the woman, and they just like created their own family incestuously, and then ate supposedly 1,000 people. So when Wes Craven read about this, he was like, oh, there's a cool movie behind this. That's kind of where he came up with the idea for the whole movie.
Yeah, I read that, and I actually thought that it might have been more interesting to keep it in the era and in the tale that actually existed.
Yeah.
It's almost
Quentin
like
Tarantino should make that movie.
Yeah, there it is. That's his last movie.
That's
finally
his last
figured
one,
out.
right? Yeah.
But they kind of took that story, and in my mind, they kind of melded it with, they try to create a Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe, and brought that somewhat modern. But yeah, it's
it had just come out, so that it was like a new gen coming, right? So
yeah, a sick and twisted story for sure. As the old man tells the story, a large man breaks the window and pulls him out through the window and bashes him to death with a crowbar. So he was right that they were coming for him. The father takes off running, and of course he's older, not in the best shape, and we see him struggle with his breathing. We see him finally collapse to his knees. And sure enough, the large man, one of the people from the hills, is on him.
Yeah. Well, they say in the beginning he had to retire because of his heart issues.
Yeah.
So then that's why when he's running, he falls and goes, oh, he kind of like clenches a little bit, like he's having a mild heart attack. So
absolutely.
They're trying to keep continuity. Yeah.
Yep. No, and then it was an easy ploy. You could see that coming for sure.
Yeah.
We go back to the camp. And the oldest sister and her husband's returned. He didn't find anything. But due to tight quarters, they're going to stay out in the station wagon, where they proceed to perform the worst kissing that has ever been committed to camera. The absolute worst.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell that was, but it didn't look like kissing.
Some of the characters in the family were a little awkward to begin with. So like even with the son, when he does the backflip for some reason, they just some.
I will say now, and I was going to mention at the end, but the acting in this movie is a little weak.
It's very low budget.
Yeah, very very low budget. I remember seeing this movie as a young man, as a kid, and I thought more of it historically than what I thought of it rewatching it. Its flaws kind of stood out more to me than I originally recognized. I saw it as raw and brutal, and this
like an exploitation 70s film when you first saw it, like, oh, this is crazy, and then you go back and look at it and like, oh, okay, this is lower budget than I remember.
Yeah, and the story is a little weaker than I remember, but it does have its good points, and one of those good points in my mind is the criminally underused Michael Berryman.
Yeah, the ball guy, right?
Yeah, as we
Yeah.
come back, he is inside the camper stealing and pillaging, and he's trying to see what's going on. He's taking stuff, and he just has such a cool look to him. In fact,
Yeah.
he's featured on the posters and on the cover of the VHS but he's not nearly as prominent in the movie as he should be, because
Well, what's interesting about this movie is that the cannibals in this movie, the bad guys, they actually tend to have like more personality than the family. You know what I mean? Like they kind of do, like they're all like weird characters. You know what I mean? Like, whereas that the family are all kind of just these like these arrogant, cocky, suburban, like American. They all have this like similar like vibe, and then the cannibals, they all have this like, they all have an interesting like cartoonish personality, and it works.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
I think they acted better, I think.
Yeah, totally get what you're saying. So outside, we hear an explosion that wakes everybody up, gets everybody's attention. And as they run outside, the father was dragged back to the site and is now cooking in the fire of the explosion where they had left him to be. When everybody's out there trying to tend to the father, and he doesn't make it.
Well, when they go out there with the fire extinguisher, it looks like they're extinguishing a scarecrow. The props were very low budget in this movie.
So now Pluto and Mars are all the kids in the family are named after planets. They're inside. They're inside the camper with just the youngest sister and a baby, and Mars has this really weird line that just jumped out of me. He goes, "Baby fat, you fat, juicy," just like that.
Yeah.
And
that's
okay, the girl's not fat at all.
Right.
But I don't know, like you said, the bad guys are more interesting. Like, what the hell was that? It came out of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, I think that scene, there's an implied sexual assault scene right there. They don't show it, but
yeah, they definitely do. They shoot the mom, they sexually assault the sister, and they steal the baby. As they return to the cave, Beast, is still alive, the other dog, and he actually pushes Mercury off a cliff to his death.
Right after it's telling a sick joke, he talks about like eating baby toes.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh man, this is vicious. And then the dog kills him. You're like, all right, well, that was satisfying to watch.
He got what he deserved.
Yeah.
And as daylight breaks, the baby's father and the dog, they set out looking for the baby, and the clan has the baby, and they want to kill the baby. And Ruby, who we saw at the beginning, who was somewhat jealous of the old man trying to get away, she tricks him, and she gives him a wrapped up pig instead. And when they unwrap it, it's a pig instead of the baby, and she is taken off with the baby. And Beast gets to Pluto and rips his throat out, which is kind of cool. Definitely payback for the other poor dog. Back at the camp, the three people left at the camp, the two sisters and the brother, they lure Papa Jupiter into the camper with the gas turned on as a trap, and they blow it up. And you think, well, they got him. Of course, in typical horror movie, standard trope, he's not dead and he jumps back up, but this time they have the gun and they shoot him in the head, and he's finally dead. So Papa of the clan, Papa Jupiter, is gone. So Mars is chasing Ruby and the baby, and she had met up with the father, so they're now together trying to run away, and Mars is chasing them. And the father and Mars end up in a fight, which probably isn't going to go well for the father, except in a lucky moment, Ruby comes upon a rattlesnake, and she picks the sucker up and puts it right on the back of Mars's neck. as he
It was
was on
very
top.
creative. It was very creative WWE style kill. Like she's gonna just pick up a rattlesnake and just like put it on someone's neck. Like
If there's a snake in it, like it's already the creepiest thing ever to me, because that's just how
and
I
they
feel
mentioned
about it.
rattlesnakes like 10 times in this movie.
Yeah, well, if we were stuck in the desert, it'd be the
Yeah.
first thing I'd be worried about.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Because of the snake bite, the father then gains control, and he gets the knife that Mars had, and he gets on top of him, and he just starts stabbing him repeatedly, just over and over and over and over again.
Mhm.
Cut to black, and that's how the movie ends. It's a very abrupt
That's
ending,
it.
I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah.
There's no, you know,
The-
they're still
yeah,
trapped in the desert.
right. There's no like real like resolution to the problem. Like it's just chaos. And then there's the daughter that was there. Like I mean, she had this like she seemed like the character, like the redeeming character, or she wanted to leave the family. She wanted
Yes.
to save the baby. She wanted to get out of there. It's like, so what happens with her? Yeah,
Right.
yeah. What happens with this whole family? Like everyone, they're just still stuck out there. There's no cell phone. They don't have a gas. The thing still broke down.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. There's
just
no
madness. It
conclusion.
was chaos.
Are they
Yeah.
going to starve to death? Are they going to, die to
Yeah.
the elements?
Yeah.
It's like, all right, we ran out of film. That's how it kind of seemed.
This movie's one of the words that comes to mind when I think this movie is psychotic. The movie's just psychotic. Like everything that happens, like after the first act kind of sets it up, and then once we introduce like the cannibals, it's just everything from there is psychotic. They're breaking into them and eating the raw meat and the milk and drinking the milk and stealing the baby, and you're just like, Jesus.
Yeah, very, very brutal stuff. Although a lot
Mhm.
of it's not on screen. They do
Yeah,
show
that-
some stuff, but it's not like they're digging into the guts and chewing it in front of you
Yeah.
type of thing.
That's a really good point. They don't really do that in this movie. They actually steer clear of a lot of that. There's not a lot of crazy special effects. There's not a lot of, there's not a lot of like vicious stuff that they do on screen. It's all kind of implied, but it's just the way it's written and acted that you just kind of like, it just has this chaotic, psychotic element to it.
Again, I had considered this a classic, and upon rewatching it, there's a lot of it that's pretty mediocre. It might have been groundbreaking at the time, and low budget guerrilla warfare type movie making, which I love and appreciate. But it's not an awesome movie. It's
it dated. It's very dated. I think the concept is great. But yeah, the film itself is dated. Just the recordings when you listen to it, like it's just some of the recording just sounds awful. Like just like the voice, and it's crackly through your speakers and stuff, and it's just
yeah,
it's dated technology for sure. Which
and
is why
the
I think
acting's
they
poor.
wanted to,
And the story ends abruptly. It's got its charms, but I think they missed the target slightly. Just my opinion.
But it was Wes Craven in his early career, right? I mean, he was just kind of getting started. He only done a couple movies before that. I think he did Last House on the Left.
Yep.
So,
Which to me is a better film.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's
We'll
better,
cover in another episode.
It's better acted. It's and there's 4 years between the two movies, and again, I'm not bashing the movie. It's got its place in history, but it's got some weaknesses for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, our next vacation that goes awry takes place in 2006. The Descent, directed by Neil Marshall. And this is a horse of a different color for sure.
Absolutely.
We start with a group of three adventurous women who like extreme sports.
Thrill seekers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're whitewater rafting. And we see which turns out to be our main character, Sarah. She leaves the whitewater rafting with her husband and daughter, and they are very quickly in a shocking car accident that's a super quick gut punch.
Yeah.
And the father and the daughter don't make it. We find out Sarah wakes up in the hospital screaming, and in a really cool scene, she runs down the hallway. She leaves her room and she takes off down the hallway, and the lights keep shutting off as she runs. So she's running from the darkness, and it's catching her, which was kind of a cool effect. And she runs into the arms of her friend Beth, who confirms the worst, but the lights were not going off. It was more symbolic.
It was a psychosis. It was symbolic. Yeah.
But I thought it was a beautiful scene that it the message it was portraying.
The cinematography in this film is outstanding. I love it. I mean, this is one of my favorite, not just horror films. This is one of my favorite films of all time. I love this movie. It's just shot brilliantly. That's just the very beginning. That's just the first act where we see, like, where she's in the hospital. Like you said, running down, the lights going out. It's very well done.
It's quick. It's brief in the movie. They don't drag it out, but it's very impactful.
Yeah, pacing is great in this movie. Yeah.
The third girl who was in the whitewater rafting, Juno, she is not there when Sarah wakes up in the hospital. And then we jump forward 1 year later. We're in the Appalachian Mountains, and it's the same group of girls plus three new girls.
Time for they do this yearly expedition. It's like rock climbing, water rafting, whatever. Once a year they try to do something. So this is like they're trying to do something new to kind of get Sarah out of the funk that she just, she suffered a traumatic experience, lost her child. It's been a year. Let's get back. Let's have like some communion and do something together. Yeah.
And this is the first time that most of them have seen Sarah since the tragedy. The same group of three plus a Rebecca, a Sam, and a Holly, and they're going on a cave exploration. And the next morning, they're heading towards the caves, and we see a few hints of bad things to come. We see, a moose carcass. We see some blood where we don't necessarily expect it. And as the viewer, we're thinking, okay, maybe this isn't a great idea. But the trick is, most of the girls believe they're going to a well-mapped, known, almost touristy type.
Almost touristy,
yeah. But this whole thing was set up by Juno, and we find out through this process, not yet, but we find out these are unmapped caves that she discovered, that her first thought is no one's ever been here before. We're going to discover it together.
Which is the worst, most irresponsible thing a person could do. You would never, ever do that when it comes to, like, if you're into like expeditions and doing stuff like this, like the whole team has to be on board with everything that's going on as far as maps, like supplies you need, everything. You wouldn't just bring your friends. It's, to me, the most absurd part of the whole plot, which makes her really like a true bad guy, in my opinion. Like,
and we find a lot of reasons to not really like Juno very much as we go on.
Yeah. Because that's a psychotic thing to do. Like, I'm just going to take guys some random cave that no one's ever been to and put your lives at risk. Like,
what? The arrogance is unbelievable.
Right. Yeah.
Once down in the caves, and there's cool shots of them grappling down, and they're all into this extreme stuff. They're all fit, and they're all very good at what they're doing. They start to go through some tight areas. Again, they don't know where they're going. So they find, okay, let's find a path, and they're crawling through very tight crawl spaces. One of the big fears in the world is claustrophobia, and they embrace that. There are so many scenes of people in uncomfortably tight situations. You're on edge. There's a lot of tension throughout this whole movie. And of course,
it's hard to breathe watching this movie. You're just like, geez, like it's not just claustrophobia. They find a way to mix claustrophobia with fear of heights too. Like, because there's a lot of drop off scenes, and it's tense.
It's got fear of dark, fear of tight spaces, fear of heights, and fears of something no one's ever even imagined before. So,
of the unknown, of sounds and stuff. This movie packs a punch.
And one thing I noticed about this movie, one thing I made a note of is there's a lot of jump scares, right? Yeah. And sometimes, to me, jump scares are a cop out. because
They're annoying sometimes. Yeah.
it means you can't tell a story and create a tense environment with your story. It's just a
Yes.
cop out. Anybody
Yes.
can throw a loud
Yes.
noise and a quick camera jump, and you got a
Yeah.
jump scare. In this
And
movie,
compared to like creating atmosphere, right? Like we've talked about that before. Yeah.
this movie's so thick with atmosphere, it's so tense that every jump scare adds to the tension. I actually think it works here. And I'm usually I complain about jump scares.
I do too. Jump scares annoy me if they're not done. Once in a while, they're good, but like for the most part, sometimes they're just filler. There's actually one jump scare they do in this movie later on in the movie where they hold off on the jump scare for a good 2 seconds. Like I expect it to come, it doesn't come, but then 2 seconds later it comes. It's like, oh, they knew the audience was going to wait for it. They still brought it in. Like it's almost like meta. It's like a meta jump scare. Like they had to do it, like, but it was. I kind of like.
I know what you're talking about.
Like,
It would remind me of the clown in the bed in Poltergeist. When you expect it to be there, it's not, but then it's there a moment later.
But then it's there. Yeah, it's very meta. I can appreciate when they do that very much.
So of course our main character Sarah gets stuck going through a tight hole. And she wants to back out, and Beth is trying to help her. And of course, tremors come and a bunch of debris falls, blocking the passageway. So she has no choice to go forward. Yeah. Again,
well, it's funny because she's right then she says that classic line, the worst thing that's ever happened to you has already happened to you.
Oh, it's a great line.
So yeah. And then she says that, and then it's funny that she says that, because then it's like, actually, no, now this hole that you're in is collapsing. So now this is the worst thing that's actually ever happened to you.
Yeah. And again, the claustrophobia, the tension, you can just feel it. You're on your edge of your seat this whole time. And keep in mind, you're halfway into this movie before the creatures that this movie's about.
I think it's an hour. I think it's like 50 minutes to an hour before the first time that's ever introduced. Yeah, it's very, very great story building.
But the first hour, you're on the edge of your seat still, and you haven't even been introduced to the main antagonist.
One thing I love about this movie is that it feels like a slow burn, but it's like it's the way they pace it is perfect, because every time you think it can't get worse, it gets worse.
Yes.
Like things just keep getting worse the whole movie.
Yes. They come to a cavern that they can't get across. They drop a rock, and it's whatever. It's many seconds later before the rock hits.
Yeah.
So they decide they have to create a path over. So one of the girls, I believe Rebecca, she climbs out on these stalactites.
Yeah.
Is holding on with one hand while she's putting clips in.
Yeah.
And then running rope through them. And
professional rock climbing stuff that I would just be like, I'd fall.
Yeah, I would have just said, I'm just jumping because there's nothing else happening here.
I'm just gonna sit at this edge and see what happens. Yeah.
and you're holding with her every move, and you're afraid that what she's holding on to is going to slip.
Yeah.
Another really well done scene. She makes it across.
Very well done. Yeah.
Has the rope run, so now everybody can just hook onto the rope and shimmy over. I could be the shimmy over guy.
When she
I couldn't be the hanging anything up.
The shimmy over guy.
I could shimmy over. That'd be all right.
Right, that's about it. When she's going to the end though, she notices that there's a hook that's already in on the wall, like on the cave, and it's this old piece, and I don't know exactly what it's called, but when she pulls it out later, Juno says, this is like 100-year-old piece. We don't even use this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
So it's an inclination. It's a clue that like 100 years ago, people were in this cave trying to figure out how to get through, but no one's gotten through.
Yeah, they start creating this mythology of what's going on.
Yeah, I love that part of the movie though. Yeah, I like that.
So the last one to go across is Juno, and because now they can't go back the way they came, she says, well, we're going to need all this equipment. So she goes over, hanging on, taking out all the equipment as she goes. And of course, as she's getting to the end, it drops, and the woman at the other end holding on to the rope gets rope burn as the rope tears through both of her hands. Just meatloaf.
Vicious cut. Yeah, which would actually happen. I like that.
Oh,
they
yeah.
did that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's bad news.
Which
So-
is interesting. That's an interesting scene because it gives Juno, it gives her like a redeeming quality. Like, right, she's doing this to save everyone. Like, she has these redeeming hero qualities about her in this one scene. It's pretty interesting because the narration for her character is going to completely change.
Or she was showing off.
Yeah, or maybe she's just selfish and self-preserving.
Yeah,
right.
I think that's definitely true of her character. But
Yeah.
she's a great athlete.
Yes.
We learned that for sure.
Yeah, well, they all are, absolutely. But yeah, she is.
So as you mentioned, they move forward. Rebecca now with the torn up hands, but they find a cave painting, and this is when Juno reveals to them this is not the cave that she told them about, and this is an unmapped cave, and no one knows they're there. Like you said, the height of arrogance, lack of safety, putting everybody else at risk. Just an unbelievable douche move.
Yeah, and she's just like, "Hey, let's get out of here. Who cares about looking at this stuff?" And they're like, "No, hold on, we have to figure this out." And yeah, she's like trying to rush everyone along at that very moment.
Yeah. Well, Holly takes off exploring, and as she's moving fast, she runs over to a little area and falls down a hole. And I know the thing that you can't stand is the eyes. My thing is compound fractures with the bones sticking out.
Yeah.
And
those are rough,
Holly's
too.
leg is just mangled.
Yeah.
The white shard of bone is just sticking straight up. It's
gnarly.
Like
Yeah,
you said,
yeah.
when you think it can't get worse, it gets worse.
It gets worse. Yeah.
So she's in bad shape. They climb down to her, and one of the girls is a nurse. One of the ladies is a nurse, and they start trying to put her bone back in, and they don't have anything. They literally are.
I love the scene. Yeah.
They take one of the climbing bars.
One of the claws. Yeah, and they have to use that as like just piece of metal. Yep.
Yeah, it's agony, and
she's like, "I have to snap your leg. I have to snap your leg back into place. So that'll actually prevent fluid from building up, and she can put the stent on. So that's actually something they would probably really have to do." Yeah. And she's like, "What?" She's like, "Here, I need you to bite on something. I got to snap this back in." And they kind of show it, like she kind of grabs the bone and just pushes the leg back in.
Yeah. Awful stuff. That stuff gets to me every time.
Yeah. That doesn't bother me. The eye thing bothers me. I watched that and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. So we're reversed because the eye doesn't. Yeah. The eye, but yeah. I guess we're all sick in our own ways. This. I'm like, no. While they're doing this, Sarah hears noises. She starts exploring where she hears the noise from. She's kind of like around a little bend, and she's looking with her light. Again, tons of darkness, tons of creepy shadows and corners, and we get a glimpse far off of a white skinned creature. Looks like a man, but not a man. Yeah, and it's just quick,
like a little like demon imp type thing. Yeah,
it's a quick glimpse, and then it's gone out of the light, and it's like whoa. And we're halfway or over halfway into the movie before we catch this glimpse.
Yeah. And everyone's already in panic mode. I mean, someone's broken their leg. They don't have enough supplies to last. They're worried about the batteries. They're lost. They don't have any maps. There's layers of disaster in this movie that we've already built upon. There's trauma of losing loved ones. They're lost in a cave. They're dealing with mistrust and betrayal because Juno's brought them somewhere and it admittedly has no idea where they are. And now there's another layer that's being added to the movie. There's some kind of monster that they have to deal with. Yeah. So it's just layered with disaster.
Also, at first, nobody believes Sarah when she reports what she sees. She only got a glimpse of it, but it was shocking, and she definitely saw what she saw.
And they're all being hysterical at this moment. Yeah, I mean,
and that's what they chalk it up to. Yeah. You're scared. It's dark. You hear noises. Your mind fills in what you want to see. Okay, I probably would think the same thing.
Yeah.
They end up in an opening full of animal bones, and there's just bones everywhere. So it's like a animal graveyard.
Graveyard.
And
Yeah.
they decide they're gonna look around using the infrared camera, and they turn it on, and you see the infrared shot. Look around, it pans around, and then when it comes to Juno, the creature is standing right behind her
Yeah.
shoulder, and we get our first real
Yeah.
good look at it. And it makes a screech, and the creature grabs Holly and just rips Holly's throat out.
Yeah. It's a
Holly's
great
had a
jump
rough
scare, by the
go.
way. I actually liked it. Yeah. Yeah.
I assume
Yeah.
that was the hesitated jump scare you were talking about.
That was one of them, actually. That is one of them. They actually
Okay.
do it a couple times. There's
Okay.
another one they do later. Yeah.
Okay. So this we get our first look of the creature on infrared camera, and it's standing right there, and it immediately rips Holly's throats out. It was just crazy. Juno immediately starts fighting again. To her somewhat credit, she ends up fighting two of the creatures for Holly's body, and
Yeah. That's a great scene.
she kills one of them. She uses her climbing axe and right through the head. But the other one gets Holly's body and gets away. And then she turns around as something approaches her and puts her axe straight through Beth's throat.
Yeah.
And
Vicious.
Again, things can't get worse. They keep getting worse.
They keep getting worse. Yeah.
As Beth is falling down, she grabs Juno's necklace and tears it off, and it falls into her hand as she goes to the ground. And we figure Beth's history at this point.
Right. Yeah. She was like grasping to one of her best friends for one last time, and kind of like it was like symbolically taking that necklace. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Our main character, Sarah, as she's trying to get away, she falls and of course is knocked out. But she comes to see a group of the creatures feeding on Holly's body. So she sneaks away quietly. It's almost like we talked about a Quiet Place last week, and we're in a similar scenario in that these creatures can't see a thing. Everything they do is based on sound.
Yeah. They say they kind of think it's like bats. Like that's how they hunt.
Yep. Bats in a cave. It makes perfect sense.
There's no real like declaration of this in the movie. It's all kind of like left for the audience to kind of figure out. But I think what Neil Marshall had actually said it in one of the interviews that he did, is that the whole point of the cave is that the cave painting, when you see the paintings, is that's kind of to let you know that like there was a group of people that went into this mountain years and years ago, and they kind of developed their own society there and never left. Right. So that's a lot of people like wondered what these creatures were. Like some people thought they were like feral vampires or something like that, but like they were just a group of people that went into the cave to survive, and then they never left it. They couldn't get out. They couldn't really get out, so they just stayed there. Well, I think they could get out, but they just stayed there.
Yeah.
And so that's actually what the creatures, that's actually what they were. They're just people that evolved in this like cave-like system. And so now they've evolved over the years, and they can't really see, but they're just people.
Yeah. Mutated weird
weird people. Yeah.
So Sarah sneaks away, and she comes across Beth's body, and Beth is still alive, barely, but Beth tells her that Juno did it and left her there. And she also tells her at this point that she has Juno's necklace, and that it was a gift from Sarah's husband.
Yeah.
And you suddenly have a whole new level of dislike for Juno.
Yeah. It's evil. Yeah. It's like, well, who's the real monster in this cave?
Yeah. Well, and then you kind of figure out why Juno didn't stick around when her husband died. She wasn't there for her, which she mentioned at the beginning.
Were they ever really friends? Yeah. Once the guy was gone, like she just kind of disappeared. Yeah. It's just.
Yeah. Beth then asks Sarah to kill her, to euthanize her, and after much thought, she finally agrees to do it
Yeah.
and does it by smashing her head in with a rock, which is just
Yeah, and they kind
brutal.
of do it off screen. They kind of like pan the camera back and don't really show it, but it's just like, yeah, what a vicious thing you'd have to do. But I mean,
To
I
your
can't
best friend.
imagine being, yeah, but I also can't imagine being in that entire scenario to begin with. So who knows what kind of chemicals and adrenaline are running through you? And I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the whole. Everything just has to get worse. It's like, oh, by the way, now you have to kill your best friend. Like, yeah, everything just keeps getting worse. So she kills her friend, and then finds out that she was betrayed by her other friend, which, I mean, it's interesting because if you look at like Dante's Inferno, the classic play, the ninth level of hell is left for people for betrayal. Like, it's the worst thing that could happen to you. You know, like having someone like betray you. And so for all the bad things that are happening to these people in the scenario where they're lost in a cave and they're getting attacked by monsters, not only that, but they're getting betrayed by their best friends. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a nightmare. It's a nightmare scenario on every level.
Yeah, as you said, it keeps getting worse.
It's a descent.
While Sarah's collecting her thoughts, a creature jumps on her back, attacking her, and she kills it. And it was a young one, and immediately thereafter, the mommy's looking for it,
Yeah.
and she lets out these awful guttural shrieks that you mentioned a bat. That's what they kind of sound like, is almost like a bat screaming.
They're they have the screech to them. Yeah, it's like screeching howl. It's nightmarish.
Sarah runs and falls into a pool of blood, water mixed with blood. But
this scene, it was goopy. Like, I was just looking at it because, like, I love the again, the cinematography of this film, because it's all black and dark, but then like there's the red flare color, so it's just black and red flare, so it makes whatever liquid she's going and look like blood. I think it is blood, but it's just gross.
It's at least a pond that collected a lot of runoff, if it's not pure blood. But a lot of movies are sometimes I think a movie's too dark and you can't see, and you're missing important pieces of the action. I think this movie balances what's left in the shadow and to what they show perfectly, where you don't see what you're not supposed to see, but you always see enough to know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
No, 100%. Like, the lighting in this movie should have won an Oscar. Like, I thought it was to not make a pun, it was brilliant. You know what I mean? And like, it just, you actually feel like you're in real caves when you're watching this movie. Like, they actually did not film this in caves. They had to set up set pieces for this because it would be too expensive for them to film it in caves. They had thought about it, but they actually had to set up like 23 different set pieces for this movie and just film it differently like that. And they used like a lot of like actual rocks. They actually had like polyurethane rocks and like wax sculptures and stuff like that. But it just feels, you just, like you said, like with the way they convey all the darkness and the minimal light in this movie, it's fantastic.
Yeah, often scenes are lit with a flare, so the only coloring is the red from the flare. So you have minimal light, and what you do see is lit red, as if that's not a warning enough. But it's really cool.
Yeah, or sometimes there's the green. They have the green glow stick. There's a couple scenes with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of the cameras, I think, has a blue light, but they're all. Once it gets crazy, it seems like everything's lit in red.
Yeah, and it's just the head helmets that they have, and the flashlights. And it's just that's the lighting of the movie within all this darkness, and it just works perfectly the way they do it.
Yeah, it's well done. So the mother, while Sarah's in the pool of blood, the mother attacks her, and Sarah kills her, and then Sarah kills another. Sarah's turning into a killing machine here.
Yeah, there's an eye scene right there.
Yes, true. Meanwhile,
I jot notes of those in every movie.
Yeah, and we always seem to find one for you. A large group is chasing Juno, who has caught up with Sam and Rebecca, and Sam and Rebecca are both end up being killed. Juno jumps into the water and kills one, and Sarah, who's also trying to escape, finds her and pulls her out. So now it's just the two of them. And they're tracking their way to they think they found the exit. And the exit is blocked by a bunch of the creatures. And it's just Juno and Sarah, and they start fighting. And they're like Rambos at this point. And I think back to the comment about the worst thing that ever happened to you has already happened.
Yeah.
And I almost took that as a form of empowerment. And we see Sarah grow from the broken and meek to an absolute warrior, because when you've lost everything, you have nothing left to lose.
Yeah. And I think that saying is meant for that. Like, it's kind of a humbling saying. Like, listen, you've already survived the worst parts of your life. You can keep going forward. You know, that's kind of where that saying comes from. That's why it was interesting why they placed it in the beginning of that movie.
Yeah, I almost felt like that gave her strength as she went on.
Yeah. And
so
you can see the physical transformation in her eyes. Like, she actually looks like a different actress. Like at this moment, like, she has this like Uma Thurman Kill Bill look to her. Like you know, like, it was just the whole character transformed.
Yeah.
Yep. Like, I've had enough. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they kill them all, and it's just the two of them left. And Sarah shows Juno the necklace, and then just puts her pickaxe through her knee.
Yeah.
And she leaves.
Yeah.
And
almost like it's like for the sharks, like, they're gonna smell your blood. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, maybe it was just to injure her and be like, here, good luck. You know, but it was just, that's what kind of reminded me of, like, here, they're gonna smell you come, and then she takes off. Yeah.
It reminded me of the old, I don't have to outrun the bear, I just have to outrun you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's a better one. Yeah.
She leaves, and she's making her way. She's got this long climb up this slope of bones.
The slope of bones. Yeah.
And there's light coming. There's actually light from the outside, and she's making this climb up the bones. And we hear Juno screaming, and we don't see it. We assume at this point there was many coming, and she was now.
You knew it was happening.
Debilitated. Yeah. So, she's done.
What's she gonna do? Fight off 10 of them? Yeah.
So Sarah runs down the mountain, gets in the car, drives off like a bat out of hell.
Like bat out of hell. Yeah, just hysterical. Which
funny play on words.
Be. Yeah.
And finally she pulls over, throws up out the door or out the window. And then as she sits back up to her seat, there's an image of Juno in the passenger seat, and she screams.
Yeah, like a demon look. Yeah, where she's like bleeding through the eyes. Yeah.
Ghost, guilt, whatever manifestation it was. It's not explained, but she screams, and that's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the original end of this movie did
the
not
UK
have
version.
Yeah, did not have Sarah making it. We think she makes it out, and then she's having a dream about her daughter's birthday, and the candle in her dream becomes her light on the floor, and we just see
the camera just pans back, and she's just in the cave, just
surrounded,
not going anywhere. Yeah,
absolutely surrounded. But I guess they said it tested too bleak. The movie
for
is
American
bleak.
Audiences.
Yeah, we're sissies.
Yeah.
But I've watched both endings. I guess the one thing about her living on is they did make a sequel that is somewhat forgettable, but
I've never watched it, but
this to me is, if people, and there's a lot of different types of horror movies. We talk about the over the top craziness of like an Evil Dead 2, and there's spooky, and there's ghosts, and there's funny, and there's science fiction,
supernatural, and
if you just want to talk about scary, edge of your seat, high tension horror movie, this is way up the list. This is one of the creepiest, scariest movies of all time, in my opinion.
I agree. It's extraordinarily layered. You could take out the monster element of this movie, and it's still a good movie. Just them doing what they did, and getting lost, and being chaotic, and finding about the treachery and of what they did to each other, and all of that, and just adding the monster part, like layering that on. This movie, it's like you said, it's hard to beat.
Yeah. My only question is, before this
It's
movie,
unique.
Neil is very unique. Yeah, it's very, very cool. Before this movie, Neil Marshall did Dog Soldiers, which, one of our first episodes was about werewolves. And Dog Soldiers was a very good werewolf against military movie. Then Neil Marshall went on to make this movie, which was in 2006. And where's he been?
I don't know.
Anything
He hasn't
he's
done
made
much since.
has been very poorly reviewed. It's kind of like he hit his pinnacle with this movie, and it's a great pinnacle. He directed some Game of Thrones episodes very successfully, but
Well, that's pretty good too.
every movie he's made since this, and I can't claim to have seen them, but the ratings and reviews are all way, way, way down.
Yeah.
So this may be at the end of his career. This may be his high point.
We see that with a lot of artists. I mean, they have that classic trope of the one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
Some people they only have so much in them. Maybe sometimes it just sparks and they get the right elements at the right time, and the right people were involved, and things go perfect. And it's just kind of hard to keep that up. Not many people do.
I will say, if you're going to have one hit, he hit this one pretty high.
He hit it. Yeah, I agree.
Set the bar really high.
One of the most unique horror movies, not just horror movies, but movies ever that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It should be in everyone's list.
Yeah, great flick. Okay, so these are Vacations from Hell. Cool category. As we looking into this, there was a lot of ways we could go with this. There's actually more vacations gone bad than I would have thought, but we picked a modern classic and a classic from the 70s, and I think they were good choices. I enjoyed going through them.
Yeah, me too.
So that's it for this week's episode of the Weekly Horoscope. Next week, we're going to hit you with another topic that we think could go a lot of different ways. Creepy kids.
Yeah.
We both have children, and we know, sometimes they're just plain creepy.
Yeah, I was going to say all kids are creepy. So
yeah. Hopefully Hopefully they're not as bad as some of the ones we're going to see. But
no, it depends on what day of the week it is. But yeah,
for sure. All right. Well, that's our show for this week. Thank you again for listening. We appreciate it as always. I'm Jerry. That's Matt. This is the Weekly Horoscope, and we will see you next time.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Your Weekly Horoscope with Jerry and Matt.